All right, welcome everyone. Thanks so much for coming by. It's great to have you here. Awesome to be with you. Let's work on some compositions, still life compositions. We're going to do some fruits, some vegetables, some coffee cups, some cappuccino cups. We're going to do an artist's brush, maybe a watercolor brush. We'll do maybe an onion or some peppers, whatever. We're just going to have a whole bunch of stuff here. We'll go through 8 compositions for the next hour or so and have fun with them. Go through them fast if you want to, or take your time, whatever you like to do. But we're going to certainly have a lot of fun. Tons of beautiful, exciting colors, shadows, composition, drawing. You're going to be practicing all your watercolor skills: drawing, composition, setting up correctly, paint mixing colors before you start your painting. We're going to cover all the great methods and techniques in watercolor that if you're learning them and going over them week after week and month after month on my channel here with me, you're going to have some really good success with your watercolors and have a lot of fun too. And if you've been painting a long time, well, you don't probably, need to, know so much about methods and techniques in watercolor, but you're still going to have a fun time because we're going to be doing all the different, color mixes. Maybe you haven't worked with colors as much in these type of compositions where you're mixing some, colors for fruits and vegetables and things like this, and for still lifes. I'm not sure. Everyone's different. You can let me know in the comment section if you like to paint landscapes or seascapes a lot and you're really not interested so much in this, but you decide you want to try a little bit of the still life, compositions. Fantastic. It's always good to try some things that are outside your normal work flow process. Kind of just helps you to keep on your toes, learn a few, new methods and techniques in watercolor, and enjoy things. And, I always say if you can paint everything, at least try everything and paint everything. It just makes life a little bit easier when you're painting your favorite subject matter. So stick with your favorite subject matter, obviously. I'm trying to always keep that in mind too on my channel here. So I'm going to do tons of watercolor, flowers, boat scenes, seascapes, landscapes. I know you love those all, so I'm going to be constantly doing those in the future and, on the next video. But, here once in a while we just take a break. We do some still life, and we also did a couple more like this here. We did a pepper, onion, pear, and a paintbrush. All right, so we're going to get started. Having a good time here. Let's get started in a second. All right, so we just saw the finished compositions. We've been working with still life, of course, and I just wanted you to see the 10 items that we did complete ahead of time, and so we're just going to get started here, and we'll have this apple we're going to start with. I'll probably use some tape to get it set up over here so you can work from the actual apple we have here set up, or you can work from the painting once we're done with the painting. It's up to you. But I'll just usually take a small piece of tape like that and just roll it up and then put it on the back of the apple, and I'll just set it up on like this. I'll just set it up like that. So I'll just draw it and paint it just like I'm seeing it there. It might be a little bit of a different angle. I'm standing at my table here, and I'm kind of like back this way, looking at the apple, from sitting back here and looking at it this way. You're looking at it from my camera. My camera's directly straight up overhead, up here, looking straight down on it. So there might be a little bit of a difference in angle, but no worries. You can either paint from the finished photograph or the finished painting or the apple itself like we're doing here, so that's fine. But we're just going to have some fun. Let's get some practice in here. So our still life skills are going to be good. If you ever run across any kind of still life paintings, you want to paint that, or if you want to set up a still life with some flowers, whatever it is, you can use some really nice fruits, vegetables, maybe some, kind of like offbeat things like a roll of tape, a paintbrush, whatever you like to do. And we'll do, we'll try to mix it up here and do a little bit, different things with our still lifes. But we can start out here, and we'll do number 1 here, and I think I might need some more. Okay, so this pencil is out of lead, actually, so I'll pick up another one here. This one should be good. All right, so I'll start my apple pencil drawing, about a little bit above the bottom of the paper, like this here. And then I'll just start at the bottom, maybe here, and just kind of go up and look at it and kind of see that there's a bit of an angle there. Angle here, angle across here. And I'll just stop as I'm looking at the apple and I'm drawing it. I sometimes will just stop and kind of just maybe, like if you're like thinking of jogging and you ever see a jogger when they run in place, that's kind of the same thing. I'll go up and see an angle and stop and kind of just make a little bit of a dot, like I'm running in place, and then I'm going to be going to my next angle that I'm seeing on this apple. So this apple does have angles to it. I know that, a lot of times it's easy to think, just think of an apple as like a round object, like a sphere. So it's easy just to think of it as like, okay, well, let's do this apple and just go around like this and do like this and say, okay, that's good. That's an apple. Like that. However, if we really look carefully at the apple, we're going to see different angles, and that's what we want to capture. Go a little bit, take your time. Like, don't just zip around and do a circle, right, or a sphere. Kind of look and see. Look at this apple as we're looking at it, and kind of just see if you do see a few bits of angles to it. Maybe there is a few. And then up top, I'll just make a note that there's I'll do a light area here or with my pencil just to know that the core of the apple is kind of funneling down into this area. And then I'll make a quick stem like that. And then maybe I'll create a little bit of a back of the table here, kind of an idea of the back of a table. That just kind of makes the apple feel like it's sitting on a table, like kind of stable. If we were just to paint the apple as it is with no background, let's say, or table, it might look like it's floating off in space. So this kind of just makes it feel like more of a solid object sitting on a table. And then, I'll create a little bit of a shadow. Maybe I'll make the shadow like this. I'll make it to the left a little bit like this. And then I'll put a little bit of a just a small mark up here on the apple, denoting a little bit of light hitting the apple, and I want to leave a little bit of white paper there. So that's something I would think that would really work well. And then we could start painting. So let's choose a brush that's going to fit the painting. So this looks like this would fit fine, this brush here. I would avoid maybe using a brush this size. Seems to be a little bit large maybe for this. This seems a little bit more, gives us a little bit more flexibility as far as mixing up some different colors, but we'll see. I like to kind of just size up my brush a little bit when I'm looking at my subject matter. Obviously, if we were doing a very large painting, we might go with a really larger brush, so it's up to you. You make that decision. You're the artist. You're going to decide if you want to paint a larger composition than we're doing here, or maybe you want to paint a little smaller than what we're doing right here. This is like a 4x4 maybe. Let's take a look. We'll break out our ruler here. Let's see. So this is about 4.5 by 5. So a 4.5 by 5 square roughly for this composition. And that's kind of good for what we're working here on these compositions. It's a good size. I'll take a little bit of alizarin crimson, a little bit of rose madder, a little bit of cadmium red. I'm going to go in and get some sap green. So what my idea is, let me build in some good color mixtures. Maybe a little bit of cerulean blue, maybe a touch of viridian. My viridian needs a little bit of water, so I usually use a spritzer bottle to spritz in some water there. And what else can we, maybe we can infuse in a little bit of cobalt blue maybe. French ultramarine blue and cobalt blue maybe. So there we have lots of mixtures of colors. I think the more dynamic and interesting you can make your colors, that's going to make your painting look a little better. So let's try it out. All right, so I'll pick up my first bit of paint, and I'll just look here and I'll do this. Maybe I'll pick up some more paint. So I'm looking for good juicy paint. I don't want to just, dab a little bit of water in some paint and try to paint this without getting some good, beautiful color there. So you can see I've added some really good, strong color. And all right, for our shadow, maybe some even raw sienna too, a little bit of gold in there, and cerulean. Let's go right in with our shadow and infuse it right into the bottom of the apple like that. And you could just do something like this. It doesn't. I wouldn't fuss with your shadows too much. Just my own kind of thoughts on things. Maybe some green here over this way. Okay. And remember, this is just a fun exercise. Don't get stressed over it. Don't worry about it. You're looking to get like lots of beautiful colors, mixes of colors. Now we're using some cadmium red as we go over by the top here. When we get to the top, we're going to remember we want to have a little bit of that light like this. So, and don't worry about your washes looking smooth or anything like that. It's fine if your washes are and your brush strokes are not perfect. It's almost like it looks more interesting if we can just kind of get a little more of a variation on things, right? Variation on the color. Now I did go over my white highlight. I'm sorry about that. I lift up like that. Okay, I might have saved that. That's good, right? Okay, there we go. I'm going to make sure I get that bit of white light there. Bright light. You can leave a few other bits of light. Some green over here on this side for my red apple. And again, some more red. And rose madder. You can see some beautiful rose madder in there. And some of that red, alizarin crimson, some cadmium red, and I'm looking at then we have a little bit of there's a tiny bit of shadow in that core area where the core is here, so we could just add a little bit of blue, maybe some cerulean blue like that to give it a bit of darkness in there, but not too much. Cerulean is not tremendously dark as far as colors go. And I think you can kind of see how we do have a beautiful, nice mixture of colors, and we can also start working our background color a little bit. So I'll mix the red and the green, the same color as the apple, maybe a little bit of gold like the raw sienna too. And what I'll do is I'll just get a little bit of color there for that background, a little bit of cerulean blue maybe over here, a little bit of purple maybe. Now if we use purple, we just have to remember to add a little bit of purple quickly into our painting, but I actually wouldn't do this. This is not advisable. Going in and adding color onto your apple as you painted it and your washes are drying. I tend to do this sometimes. I take a chance and a risk, and I go in and add colors to the painting when it's drying, but we shouldn't do that. So this is one case where I'll say, please don't do like I just did there. Try to let your apple washes dry first, then you can add in some of that purple. But the main thing I wanted to emphasize is if you're going to add some purple to the background now, like this, you have to add it to the apple too a little bit, but you can wait till the apple dries and then add some purple into the apple. If that makes sense, right? You wouldn't want to add just one color like purple over here in the background, but it's not in the apple. You want to have it everywhere in your painting. That's just like color harmony. You want harmonizing colors in your painting. You don't want to add one color somewhere and then just that be the only place it exists. And then you can just, we did some cerulean blue in the core there by the stem, so you can add some cerulean blue and just a little bit of interesting bits of color here and there. And that's it. That's pretty good. I think that's all set. Only thing we'll have to do is add maybe the stem. We'll let this dry though. So what I'll do is I'll take some brown and some French ultramarine blue over here. Brown, French ultramarine blue. And brown, burnt umber. And a little bit of maybe some green, sap green. And maybe a little more blue there. A little bit darker. Okay, so we're going to let this dry. Once this dries 100%, then we're going to go in and do that stem, right? Because we don't want to go in and try to paint that stem while this is still drying. So that's one thing with watercolors you're going to learn. And many of you, I know you're pros already, and you've been doing this a long time, so I'm kind of preaching to the choir here. But yeah, it's always good to let things dry and then go back in and finish up the composition or the painting as we go. All right, so let's do this. Let's take a quick break. Come back. We'll paint in our stem, and then we're going to move on to another wonderful still life item. All right, so we'll be right back in a second. All right, we're back, and let's get our stem of our apple in. Let's do it. I just number 5 Da Vinci travel brush. This comes with the Schminke set actually, and if you purchase this set, you know you get this beautiful. It's a this is a wonderful travel brush. You can go outdoors painting, or you know if you're doing a little bit of painting quickly, you want to do a couple quick compositions, maybe at a friend's house. If you want to do some painting, you bring this. You can put it in your purse, your pocket, your backpack, anything like that. When you're done, you just put your brush back in like this. It's got a hole here, so your brush will dry, so you don't have to worry about it. You just stow it in your backpack, your, again, shirt pocket, purse, whatever you have. And when you're ready to paint again, you just open it up and put it together like this. But this is a great brush. It's a synthetic brush, a very good, beautiful, sharp point like that. So we'll just go back in and we'll get this bit of dark, burnt umber and French ultramarine blue. And we'll just do our, and I'll just do this quick. I always like to say that, you know, sometimes if you're going to do like a small detail, it's kind of good just to do it quick and not spend too much time messing around. So I'm just going to put my brush on the paper, the point, the very, very point of the brush, where the core of the apple is here, and then just kind of go out and do a quick one brush stroke like this. Maybe 2 to get it. There we go. Good. Then I could fill in a little bit if I have to like that, and that is it. There we go. Perfect. All right, so let's get reset here. We'll do it right on cam. We'll take this up here. What are we going to do next? Still life. We're doing still life. We're having fun. I just stacked a whole bunch of these type things, fruits, vegetables, tape, you know, coffee cups, coffee mugs, all this kind of thing. So maybe the next thing we'll do is we'll do a cappuccino cup. So I'm going to go over here, and we'll bring over my cappuccino cup here, like this. All right. So then the only thing I have to do really is get some tape. So I'll just take some of this painter's tape, trim tape. It's like a trim tape. You can get this tape at the big box stores, Home Depot, Lowe's. It's got some tack to it, but it's not too tacky. Like sometimes duct tape or stuff like that's got way too much glue on it and tackiness to it that it would make a mess. Or this is kind of nice, the green tape. I think this might be frog tape. Yeah, this is frog tape. Green frog tape. You can get this on Amazon too. You know, it works great. You just put it on your subject matter like this. Maybe we'll paint up here, so maybe I'll just set this. Maybe I'll set this over here like this. Like that. Okay, so you're seeing this on camera, and that's quite fascinating. where I'm standing and looking down at this cappuccino cup, I don't see any of the top of the cup, but I noticed that through my camera here, you're seeing the top, and that's perfect. That's what we want to have, that little bit of a seeing the top of the cup, so we can have a little bit of some more interesting three-dimensional quality to our cappuccino cup. All right, so we'll get started with this. We'll come over here. We'll do sort of the same thing. We'll start maybe our cappuccino cup about, you know, a little bit up from the bottom here of the picture space, the rectangle, or in this case it's more or less like a square basically, and we'll come down here and we'll just say, all right, that's going to be the spot we're going to start. And then I'm just going to look, and then sometimes like fruit, something like that, an apple, an orange, you know, a lemon, things like that, there's more of like a free-flowing angles and shapes to it. But a cappuccino cup is like it's a man, like a person made this. It's like maybe it was a mold that they used, a mold. So it's very carefully crafted. So I guess we kind of have to be a little more careful how we draw this. We don't want to, it's not going to look good if we're way off on our angles of how this is looking. So the main thing is you can always go first with a light preliminary sketch and just say to yourself, okay, I'm going to just do a light preliminary sketch and see how that looks. Okay, so I come up like that, and then maybe you just want to do another side to it and try to like see if you can get it like the same angle as over here. You want to get that same angle over here because that's how it really is. It's kind of perfectly shaped. So that's like that. That looks pretty good. It's maybe not perfect, but we're going to have a handle on this side too, so maybe no one's going to notice. You don't have to worry. I'm going to look through my viewfinder right now. So on my camera, I'm looking at my viewfinder on my camera, my video camera, and I can see the top. So I'm going to use that as my, and again, I'm going to do a light sketch first, like this, okay? Just so you can get that light sketch in first, the preliminary sketch. And then once you have that, you can erase a little bit, maybe. When you have a preliminary sketch, you have more freedom to make a few corrections. But I'm pretty sure that that's looking pretty good. And maybe I have to slim it down toward the bottom a little bit. See, that's how it really is beneficial to do that preliminary sketch, like this, and then like that. I'm pretty happy with that. So now that I have my preliminary, let me do the handle. If I'm looking in my viewfinder, and then I'm looking here too, I'm using both references. Okay, I'm using this, and there we go, like this. Looks like an ear basically, or a half a heart. And then you can do the inner section like this, which is like an oval, almost like an oval, like this. And I think that looks good. I think we have a home run on this one. All right, so let's maybe this will look kind of good if we just use a symmetrical line across here. So we'll just take this back of the table line and go right across. That'll be perfect like that. And let's do the darker drawing now. So this would be our contour drawing. So I'm just going to start here, and I'm going to come up here like this. I'm going to come around here like this and come around like this. And then over here. Okay. And why not? Let's do a little bit of a shadow over here. Same things before, just to get a little shadow going. And then we will also make the actual top of the cappuccino cup like that. And then what we do is, now that we have our dark pencil line in, our contour drawing, then you can always lighten up a few lines. You could say, all right, I'm going to lighten up the top of my cappuccino cup here. I don't need to see those dark lines maybe as much up there. You might lighten up a few lines here and there, but that should be fine. Gives us a perfect drawing to work with as we do our painting. All right, so now let's go back to our brushes, and let's see, I think what I'll do is I'll empty out my water. I'll pour some fresh clean water in my water container. Always good. Maybe we'll clean this up a little bit too, just to be kind of have those good habits of painterly habits of cleaning up the palette. You know, we'll keep our palette clean so that we have plenty of good working surface, and we don't have to worry about the other colors. We're now starting out. We're going to make some new colors in our painting. This one might be a little more subdued. We're not going to use maybe as much color like this. Maybe we're just going to have some. Let's go with some raw sienna and cerulean blue. I think these are two beautiful colors. You can get your warm and cool effect. And maybe a little bit of purple too would look good like that. Let's keep it a simple, why not? Let's keep it a simple mix like this. Cerulean blue, raw sienna, and some ultramarine violet. Okay, now I'm going to go for some shadow here. Light's coming from this side over here, so this will be our shadow side. And now when we do this, we want to be careful. We want to add our shadow there too. While we're working on this side of this cappuccino cup, let's just get that shadow in there right away. Okay, now we have to work kind of more quickly. Let's get our brush, a little bit of a tissue, dry off some water off our brush. And let's see if we can kind of start smoothing over this wash like so. Don't worry if you go over a line or two. Okay. You can get some more here. Then I rinse off the brush, dry off a little bit of the water so there's not too much water in here, and then I just maybe smooth this on out. I'm going to leave this center area pretty light, and then maybe there's a little bit more shadow over here. There's some shadow over here, so I'll do a light shadow there, and then use the damp brush, rinse off the brush, dry off the water, and then just sort of get the bit of shadowing there as well. Then, what else do we have? A tiny bit of shadow on this side here. Where the top of the cappuccino cup is, like that. So we're going to leave the top of the cappuccino cup quite light. Actually white paper. Then we have a little bit of the kind of a warmer feel along here. So I'll carefully put some of that warmer wash there, some raw sienna. I put that there, let it sit for a second, rinse off the brush, dry off a little bit of water on a tissue, and then maybe I just sort of pick up a little bit of blue as well, put that up here. So you're kind of placing a little bit of wash, and then you can take it again, rinse off your brush, dry off the water, damp brush, and then you can kind of just smooth this out a little bit, and you can have a little bit of a little bit of that shadow in there, and there might be a little bit more of a blue there, a little bit more dark. You can kind of adjust it as you go. Maybe a little more blue there, like that. Rinse off the brush, dry off the water, and then just maybe smooth that out a little bit so it's not too drastic, but you can see it's And that is looking good. All right. Anything else I can see? Yes, I can see a little bit of shadow here on this handle. So I'll pick up some more of that cerulean blue and raw sienna. And I'll put a little bit of that shadow over here on the handle of the cappuccino cup, like that. Anything else? I do see a little bit of shadow under here on this part of the handle as well. Okay, I will add in some purple. And this is nice because we can add in some dynamics to our colors. Maybe it might look a little more interesting if we just add that little bit of purple to the shadowing colors, which is kind of always nice. Shadows tend to have that purple color to it a lot of times, and I think that looks good. Next thing we can do is just to finish up with some nice details. You can always, why not, if you want to accentuate a little bit of the top of the cup, the cappuccino cup, you can put a little bit of a wash there, a little bit of color there, some cerulean blue and raw sienna like that, and then splash on some water like that. Okay, that is going to make our composition a little more exciting looking. I'll create a little bit of a shadow in the back there behind where the table is. A couple more splashes there. Like this. All right, and again, it's just getting familiar with your subject matter. We have had really good success so far with two of our first two items right out of the gates here. So let's be thankful for that, and we'll just keep moving forward. Let's take a quick break, though. So it's always good. I always mention I take breaks often, like every 15, 20 minutes. I like to just take a quick, 5-10 minutes, relax, and then come back and start working again. That's just my own, process of how I do things. You might not need the breaks. You might think, I can, or you might be comfortable working for like an hour straight. That's fine. Everyone's different. So you're the artist. You're going to figure out if you do need a few breaks here and there just to, regroup, relax, so on and so forth. But let's keep going. After a 5-minute break, we'll come back. We'll get another still life subject matter going. So I'm looking over at my table across my studio, and I'm going to go find something else. But let's take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll reset up, and we'll set up for another item here. All right, so we're going to move right along to our next item. Let's create a avocado. So this is kind of easy to paint, very, very dark. It's going to be almost like a pretty simple thing to paint. A little bit of light on there. Let's do this. We'll start here, just a little bit up from the bottom. And then what I'll do is that'll be my line to start with, so I kind of know where I want to. So that's good to establish your first little bit of a hash mark as to where you're going to start your drawing. And you can kind of see I'm kind of sticking with the same game plan. Just a little bit above the bottom of my pencil line that I drew in for my rectangle or my square, as we have. We do a little hash mark there, then we kind of know, all right, we're going to start there. And then what I'll do is I'll just start out, and right away I'm going to do a light preliminary sketch first. So I'm just going to go up and kind of work my way around here. That looks pretty good. I might go over with a darker line. I also might make a shadow here, like so. I'll put my shadow in there. Then I'll just do another darker line. Maybe it's sometimes it's a little bit easier for you to see as I work. If I have a darker pencil line here on my drawing. And that looks pretty good. All right, so we have our drawing complete. Well, let's do, again, we're going to try to keep our line going here. You can certainly please use a ruler if you want to keep your level line behind your subject matter, like the back of your table, straight. And that doesn't always have to be perfectly level. You can make it on an angle like this if you wanted to, or an angle like this. So your table doesn't always have to be level, like across straight this way. But since we're doing all of these compositions like in the same kind of idea, I'll just keep everything level. So my table tops are going to be level like this. But you don't, if you're just going to do one of these out of all of these, you're just going to take one of these, make it like a larger painting, and kind of try to go for a finished painting. Maybe frame it, put a mat on it, and frame it, and all that. That's great. But at that point, then you could use a little bit of an angle to your back of your table. You wouldn't necessarily have to make it perfectly level like this. Although I think it looks good this way. But you have the freedom to do that, to be as creative as you want. And we're going to get started with our color mixtures. What are we going to use? This is a very, very dark green, so I'm going to go with sap green. Lots of sap green. Also French ultramarine blue, and also some brown, some burnt umber. And then I'm going to try to see maybe a little bit of burnt sienna. It's more of a cooler green, so that's more French ultramarine blue. So I'm going to add plenty of French ultramarine blue to this. And plenty of sap green. With a little bit of brown to neutralize the colors, but I think that looks pretty good. So what I'll do is I'll make the, we'll get right in there and start our wash with plenty of, you can see that I added mostly paint. Not much water, just a little bit of water to this mixture. You can kind of see that. A lot of water in this type of mixture would look something like this. So that really wouldn't work too well. So that's why I'm just using mostly paint, not much water. And then we'll use our tissue, dry off a little bit of the water once we rinse our brush off and we go back in here, and we're just going to pick up plenty of paint. And then I do notice maybe I'll leave a bit of white paper here for a highlight. Like that. I did notice a little bit of some reflected light from underneath, so that might be like this. A little bit lighter there, and then darker at the bottom. Okay, I would add a little bit of raw sienna just to give ourselves a little bit of that warm and cool effect. Maybe we don't exactly see some of that raw sienna in this painting, or in this avocado that we have in front of us here, but I would say don't worry. Sometimes add a little bit of artist liberty so that you have okay, and then I'll leave a little bit of that reflected light here. You can add a little bit of that. You can blot up a little bit with a tissue to give yourself some of that reflected light look. Then we would go in and get some more green, maybe some raw sienna too, for our shadow. And then our shadow can be darker, closer to the object, like that. So it's darker here. And then we rinse off our brush, dry off a little bit of the water on a tissue. Damp brush now, and we just add a little damp brush to that to lighten it up a little bit maybe, and that should be good. Next thing we can do, just to finish up our painting, a little bit of background at the table. And you can see this is more or less more of a simplistic color scheme. And we can just take this and do a little artistic brush stroke or two. Scrub a little bit, like this. A little bit of splashing. You can just take some water, splash some water on there. And again, a little bit of warm and cool, so no sense in trying to not be creative. Be a little creative. Add some of the gold in there just to give yourself some warm and cool. I think you will be happy with that versus just leaving it blue and green. And there you have it, our wonderful avocado. And let's keep moving here. This is really enjoyable, just small fun compositions like this. You learn a lot on color mixing, a little bit of just the process of getting in that drawing first, and then you're getting your paint washes over the top of your pencil drawing, making some little bit of adjustments here and there. We're doing that same process of laying out things, making sure, okay, we want to make sure we're a little bit above the bottom of our rectangle to get our subject matter set in the picture frame here. We're not making anything too small within our picture frame. We're kind of filling up the picture space with our subject matter too, as you can see. So we're not really having that problem. Sometimes you see people when you ever see that when people take photographs maybe on vacation or something, and they take a picture of like something, and it's the actual subject matter is like this little tiny dot in the middle of the picture, and then you see everything else, but you can't really see the subject matter that you want really well. So that's kind of like we're avoiding that by just having good, solid technique and being aware of our, our creation of our subject matter, the technique of figuring out, getting that picture space drawn in. We draw a square first, or a rectangle first. These are squares basically, obviously, but rectangle first, and then you fill up your picture space with your subject matter. Let's do that. Let's not draw a little small tiny apple or cappuccino cup or avocado here. Let's make sure we fill up that picture space like we're doing. Everyone's doing a great job. Let's continue on here. But I always mention these things because sometimes some of you are kind of new. Maybe some of you are brand new. And if you're brand new, welcome. Great to have you here painting along with us. I'm really happy that you're here. We're always having a fun time. We're creating watercolors every week, week after week, month after month, and year after year. So I'm hoping that you'll maybe even consider subscribing to the channel. This way you won't lose track of what we're doing. When you subscribe, really all it is YouTube will just let you know the next time we create a new video. So you'll always kind of be aware of when our new videos are coming out. And usually they're on the weekends or right around there. And we'll do usually 2, maybe, or 3, sometimes 3 videos a week. Most of the times 1 or 2. But we're always working on watercolor, the methods and techniques of watercolor. You'll see all of my information below too as well on this video. You'll see my book, also a 2-minute video of my book where you see all of the wonderful paintings I have in my book. I have over 60 paintings in my book that you can work from that are just like these. Boats, seascapes, landscapes, city scenes, things like this, still life items. We just have so much in there, even a little bit of portrait work and figure work. So everything watercolor, and I'm hoping you'll pick up my book, and I cover a lot of information in my book, especially in the beginning of the book. You can see all the whole book. You click on that 2-minute video below, and below this, in the comment section below, the 2-minute video of my book. I'll flip through each of the pages you'll see in the video of the whole entire book, so you see exactly what's in the book. This way, when you buy the book, you're not surprised when you look in it and there's only 2 paintings and the rest is all just like, type or, something like that. You're not going to be, at a loss as to what's in the book. That's why I have that video there, so you can kind of go quickly through it and see all that's there. And there's lots of information in the beginning on methods, techniques in watercolor, exercises, how to paint, paint strokes, practice with your brush work. We have colors, color charts, all kinds of great stuff. Palettes, I go over what I use. All of my gear is covered in the book too, so it's almost like a user manual for watercolor, my book. All right, so let's get started on the next subject matter. I'm going to go across the studio and see. I'm looking over there now, and I see a lot of great stuff. So yeah, I'm going to go over there and get something next, and we'll get it all set up here, and we'll get going. All right, so we're moving right along here. I'll probably take a piece of small printer paper. I'll cover over our cappuccino cup for right now, just so we can put the, we're going to have our next subject matter. That's going to be a lemon. So we will take our lemon here. So we're trying to just keep our subject matter diversified here. And so we have our lemon here. Okay, and then we're going to do the same idea. All right, we're going to draw our lemon first. Let's go up a little bit from the bottom of the picture space. That'll be our bottom, so I just do a little quick hash mark that way. And then we look at the lemon and we say, all right, well, we're going to probably want it to fill up the picture space, so we're going to want it to be about here and here. So that should be the end to the end, like this, over here to over here, maybe a little smaller, but about there, and then we should be fine. So I'll start off, and I'm just going to look and take my time here drawing. And again, I am noticing the little bit of angles that I'm seeing. And I'm going to create a small shadow underneath like that. Then I will do another small basic line, just to get a very light line, barely visible. So I just kind of know that I want to keep this area here darker underneath. And there's even some reflected light under here too, bouncing off the table. I usually consider my table like to be like white tablecloth or a white table. And again, you could take your, you could use a ruler and just give ourselves the confidence that we can get this across over here. What could be a problem is if we draw a line here and then we draw a line down here. That would look very, very awkward. So that's why it is good to kind of maybe set up a ruler quick on the for the table, for the back of the table. Okay, so we have pretty much everything set pretty well. Another light line, maybe just to denote another change in tonal value with the lemon. There's another bit of change over here. So I'm doing some very light pencil lines on my lemon just so that I have a bit of reference here, so that when we go in and paint, let's have a game plan going in here. Put a couple little sketch lines for some of your shadows maybe, and then we're all set. We have a good chance of getting this looking really nice. So again, I'll probably do the same thing. I will take some paper towel, dip it in some of my fresh clean water I just put into the water container, and I'll just clean up the palette. No big deal. Doesn't have to be perfect. Just we get off that paint there that we used on the last composition, and that's fine. Good enough. Alright, so now we're going to kind of ask ourselves, what are we going to use for our lemon? Of course, yellow. And it's pretty cadmium yellow lemon. We know that's going to be that's going to be the main color we're going to use, the cadmium lemon yellow. Cadmium yellow lemon. That's the Winsor Newton color. There might be different names for it, but you know, a cool yellow, right? This is a warm yellow, like a cadmium yellow is kind of an orangey yellow. You can kind of see that. And then the lemon yellow obviously is it's named after the actual lemon because it's quite, you know, it's a cooler yellow. So we could look at this and say, okay, well now we have a darker bit of yellow there, but it's kind of getting more toward that raw sienna. So you could even pretend you're creating your lemon right here on the palette. So you're going to say, all right, I need some darker tone under there. We might rinse off our brush, dry off a little bit of the water, grab a little bit of blue. Okay, we could add a little blue to that, some cerulean blue, warm and cool, like that. So you have some blue. Okay, this is cerulean blue, raw sienna, cadmium yellow, and we could even add some cadmium yellow, which is that orangey yellow. It's kind of more of a warm yellow. We could also put some of that in, maybe in this area. Alright, so we have plenty of mixtures here with our colors. Okay, so I'll start out here, plenty of paint. I also would say let's create an area where we can make a spot where we have a little bit of a highlight there. So you could even just paint in your highlight to start with, and then you're all set. Okay, and then we can just start pressing down our brush and going right across, like so. Like that. What we can do is go right across again with another bit of yellow there. More yellow here with the shadow. Then we go in and we grab some of this and we get ourselves that darker bit of shadowing there, like that. With rinse off the brush, dry off the brush, and I'll add in that little bit of cerulean blue too. Like that. Perfect. Darker under here where the shadow is. Some cerulean blue there too. Like that. And then you could even go with some lighter cadmium lemon yellow like this for up here. Like that. Then you can smooth this in a little bit. maybe we need a little more shadow there. Raw sienna and cerulean blue. I did see some more shadow there. There's a little more shadow over here, like that. There's a bit of highlight there. I'm going to try to lift up that area there and see if I can. Then we'll take a little bit of burnt umber and French ultramarine blue, just to have a little bit of that. And we could also do a couple splashes like this with some blue. Rinse off the brush, get some blue there. Blue splashes looks good. Lift up a couple of the other ones maybe. So you can always lift up your splashes. If you create some splashes, you can lift them up quick with tissue. I should get a better tissue now. See, I'm always trying to, well, clean tissues are better, you know, when you're working, not to try to use the same tissue for like over and over and over again, because that can sometimes you can actually add smudges to your painting by accident if you have a really, so always keep your tissues, you know, change out your tissues once in a while. I guess I try to conserve and use my tissue over and over again if I can, but that's you know, a good, I feel that this is a good lemon that we painted here, and you can go in and we're going to do some more background here. So I will do the background where the table is. I get it started. I get it started with some color, some blue, some yellow. We're not going to want to add a new color into the painting, I would say, at this point, right? So when you start out your painting, use the same colors. If it's you know a let's use this simple color scheme, right? We don't have to go with anything too fancy. We could keep that color scheme of like the yellows with a little bit of cerulean blue. And I think that's good. Okay, so we are making good progress. I'm hoping you're enjoying this. We're having a lot of fun. We're going to get started with another 4. So I will, when we come back, we'll reset up. We'll get another sheet of paper out, and we'll have everything all ready to go. Maybe I'll show you my setup here as I go, and we'll keep working on this. All right, so we're going to get started. We're going to have another sheet of paper ready to go here. We'll lift up our lemon here that we were just working on. We'll lift this up over here. And then we have this tape down. We'll lift this up like so. And maybe I can reuse my tape. And I think I'll reuse my tape. So we'll lift this up. I'll just take this and we'll keep this paper the same size. I'll just make a mark here and here, like that. Put a ruler across here, a T-square ruler. then we'll just trim this quickly. I'll set this down where it was. And we'll bit of tape there. All right, so we're all set. And then what I did was I divided this in half. We could just use this to sort of get our line set up. So I just use this and say, okay, that was this line here. And if I move this up here and set it down the same way, that's going to be that. And then over here, I set this up over here like this. And then I just do the same thing there. I come over here, line up the papers at the top. Like that. There we have it. And I use my T-square ruler again. And then like this. And then I had a little border around it. I thought it looked interesting. Put a border around it. Okay. So we had a little extra pencil lines there just for interesting effect. And let's see what we have here. All right, let's do a pepper. Why not? We'll do a chili pepper. So I'm going to set it up like this. Like that. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to have the chili pepper sitting lower in the picture frame. So maybe I just think of it the same way as maybe going up 1 inch is the magic number here. Maybe it's 3/4 of an inch. Yeah, about 3/4. So I would say 3/4 of an inch up from the bottom. That's our good magic number for starting our subject matter from that point. And so what I'll do is I'll take this and maybe I'll turn it this way. Maybe it'll look more interesting like this. How is it going to look interesting if we put it into a picture frame? Let's see if we can do it this way. I like it's more like this. Okay, we'll do it that way. I'll have it up here higher, but we'll draw it over here lower. Okay, so now we're going to start out. Maybe I'll start out with the point there, the stem. Okay, now I can see this has definitely got like a round end to it, and then it goes around this way, and then it comes up, and it starts to turn this way, and then it goes up like this. Like that. All right. I see a bit of light. I might make a little bit of a pencil line there where I see the light going, where the light is actually striking the pepper, the chili pepper here, and it's, has a quite of a bright line across there, or highlight. So let's do that. Let's make sure we capture that and highlight there too. Okay. And then for our table, we'll have to, let's say our table's probably back this way a little bit. So we'll make our table higher in the picture frame over here. Maybe I'll bring it like this. Like that. All right, now we're going to work our colors. I'll get some fresh, clean water. I'm going to empty my water container. Fresh, clean water. Okay, sap green. So we have some sap green, maybe some cerulean blue over here. A little bit of yellow, cadmium lemon yellow there. So here we're using the similar colors that we used for our lemon, so I don't think we have to really worry a whole lot about getting the palette perfectly cleaned up here. I think we can use some of the similar colors. Okay, and then maybe some chromium of oxide might be fun to use. Let's see. All right. Okay. I'll start out right here. And there's some gold and orangey kind of a look. So I'm using the raw sienna and cadmium lemon yellow here. Okay, looks good. A little bit of that cobalt blue mixed in with some of the green, and we'll go across here. And what I'm noticing is it is quite a bit darker, the green up top here along this top area, and then it gets lighter underneath here. There's more of like a yellowish green under here. So I'm going to try to just paint what I'm seeing with my pepper here. And it is darker there, like so. And we did notice that there was a highlight there, as well as there. So we're going to leave that highlight there. Doesn't have to be the highlight doesn't have to be, you know, perfect. It doesn't have to actually you can break it up a little bit if you want, the highlight. And I think that looks pretty good. I can rinse off my brush now, dry off a little bit of the water, and then you can take some of the bright highlight and maybe just, you know, kind of add a little bit of variation to that highlight by just maybe wetting an area or two, and kind of, you can add some reflected light too by just quick little dabs of your tissue like that. And then we have a little bit of let's see here, we have some cobalt blue. It's quite a bit darker, that shadow underneath there, so a little bit of French ultramarine blue might look good. And I noticed that it's here. And it's over here too as well. The shadow. And for the shadow, you can always lift it up a little bit. If it comes out too dark, you're thinking, you could lighten it up a little bit, the shadow, no big deal. We could add some cobalt blue and make our stem here. Like that. And sometimes shadows can be a little bit depends on your light source and where your light source is coming from as to how dark the shadows are. But I did notice this is probably, I can make this a little bit darker with a little bit of a French ultramarine blue, burnt umber, and green. Like that. So you can make it a little darker, like that. Like that. And sure enough, let's grab a little bit of our colors here. Any old color like this, might as well have a fun time with this. Let's do a little background. And what I'll do is I'll use the same colors that we used. And then I will add plenty of splashing here and there. And maybe I just do a little bit of a background like that on the wall. Maybe there's a and again, we're doing compositions, so we don't have to worry too much about doing anything perfect. You're just trying to have a loose, fun time creating these compositions. All right, we are going to come back next. We'll take a quick break. I might just add a little bit of darker. A little bit of another darker wash right there, just a tiny bit, like that. And that might even be a little bit darker there. That makes more sense to me. It's kind of darker on this side over here of the pepper. The light's kind of coming from over here this way, and this is kind of more lit. And this over here is more in shadow, the top of this pepper over here, especially under here. It looks a little quite dark there. Like that. Okay, let's take a quick break and we'll come back and we'll start our next composition. All right, let's start another. Shall we? Let's create a red onion. Why not? We're doing some great, tasty foods right now. Might as well stick with some good. This is really. I gotta get some tape here. So again, I use my tape, frog tape, and we're just gonna roll it up like this. And let's see, what do we want to do here? Yeah, that might look good. All right, we could try this. All right, so again, we'll do our tried and true measurement here. Let's do a 3/4 of an inch from the bottom up here. And then we're going to look at the shape overall. So this is kind of, it's sort of, you can see it's on an angle here. I set it up on an angle. I think that's going to look a little bit better. So we might want to make this like, I'll do a light sketch, a preliminary sketch like this, just so I can kind of feel like I okay, that looks pretty good. Yeah, so I just wanted to do that light preliminary sketch. And I'll just do this. I'll carry that line through like so. And I'll use my ruler like this again to go across here, just so I keep that like that. And we could have some of these lines. Let me do the contour drawing though first. So I'm just going to do a darker line now, just so we have the overall feel for this. Like that. This is sort of like this. The top has a little bit of that coloration, that darker coloration there, and the same thing underneath here. So it's almost like a, I'll put some of those lines on here, and as you can see, there's lines that are on the onion itself, like this. So I'll just maybe make some of those. And we can kind of maybe, with our brush strokes, we can add in a little bit of these lines for the onion, red onion here. So we have that, and then we have the hair-like top there. And we can start out now with some colors. Let's do our due diligence to make sure we clean up our palette a little bit, empty our water bucket first thing. Let me just take the water from the water bucket here and clean up the palette just a bit. And same thing over here. And I never say like go crazy and have to clean it perfectly or anything, just as long as you get up the main paint that you used beforehand. We're going to be using more reds now and things, and so it would make sense just to have it cleaned up so we can create our new colors. And I'll use a little spritzer bottle here just to get some moisture onto the paints. These are fresh, squeezed paints. I'll empty my water again. There we go. Empty the water container, fresh, clean water. And we're going to continue here to get our color mixes going. So it's good habit just to maybe let's get our color mixes here started. I'll look at this and say, all right, we have the alizarin crimson, and let's use some purple in there. That's what I'm thinking is really, that looks good. So it's alizarin crimson and ultramarine violet. That gives us the color I think we need, with a little bit of burnt umber in there, a little bit of burnt sienna maybe too, like that. You can kind of see it, it's grayed down a little bit. Purple, more purple up here with a little bit of the burnt umber. Again, graying down the, kind of toning down the intensity of the color a little bit. Sometimes can be very helpful. And then I'll try to save on some of that paint. Rinse off the brush, dry off the water off the brush like so. This has got a little bit of a gold color to it here along the center of the onion, so we have that. And I see maybe a touch of green in there too, so I'll maybe put that down here, a little bit of sap green. To infuse a little bit of sap green in here would probably look good. And then there's also some really dark, so I'll go with French ultramarine blue. With rinse off the brush, dry off some of the water. We'll get some of that alizarin crimson again there. A little bit of burnt sienna to gray it down a little bit of burnt umber to gray it down a little bit. And there we have a little bit of that darker color for the bottom of the onion here. Okay, so I think we have the colors we need all set up in our palette, so we don't have to worry about it now. Now we can just go in and paint. That's one of the fun things about putting your colors out first in your palette, is you have it all there. And if you had to add a few or add a little more color, like if you have to add a little more alizarin crimson or you know, some more raw sienna as you're painting, well, that's fine. But you already know the colors you're using. You have them here all set up. This way you're not in the middle of your painting and say, oh, I ran out of color, and now you're thinking to yourself, oh, what did I use, or oh, I need to add another color now. Well, with watercolors, the more prep work you can do like this, like putting all your colors out first, you can just, then the flow happens a lot easier. You can just get in there and do the you know, the composition, the painting, the washes. So now we're going to just do that. We're just going to go in. We notice this is darker up top. Like that. More red. Okay, so we see that. A little bit of burnt umber. Tone it down a little bit. Okay. So now we're getting the washes on. I'll put a couple highlights maybe. Maybe another highlight here. Like that. Then I'll start using my brush like this. Start to think of it as, I'm going to start to kind of have the brush flowing the same way these lines are on the onion. So that looks good to me. Let me add in some of that gold here in the center of the onion like this quickly. There we go. Now I say to myself, let me dry off the brush and take this and just kind of start to bring it like this. And now I'm just sort of swinging the brush the way the onion texture is. And you can add more dark paint here up top. Add some more dark paint up top. Rinse off the brush, dry off the brush, so it's kind of like a damp brush at this point. And you just swing that on down like this, and you keep. And this is very effective to kind of get the feel for the actual onion and what it actually is, like, or what it looks like, the real, you know, contour of the thing. And then you can take some lines like this and do some darker accent colors like this, and tonal values on the onion. And again, we did that really nice bit of gold here, right along the center, just like we're seeing here. There's some of that gold, even a little bit of green. Let's do some green in there too, why not? Okay, and then under here it's getting darker again, so blue, burnt sienna, that's French ultramarine blue, alizarin crimson, burnt umber to tone it down a little bit. And then we're going to go right like that, and just, again, I take my brush and I kind of swing it around. I try to have the point of my brush work for me like this, so I'm and that's brush control. Trying to, in my book, I cover this in my book, doing different brush exercises. If you try to do this for the first time in the middle of a painting, it's not going to work probably too well. But if you try a couple of the brush exercises I have in my book, you work on them, you do them maybe every once in a while, maybe once a week or once a month. After a while, you'll get used to them, and then when you're in the middle of a painting, you can just deploy your brush techniques, and they work out really good, and you don't have to think about it really. You've already practiced it a number of times, and it just flows freely. That's why I always mention, like, the brush exercises in my book are really helpful if you want to just make your life easier as a watercolor artist, because it's not always easy trying to get some of these washes in. I'll be the first to admit, sometimes I'm like struggling myself here to get stuff done and get things looking good. You can also do a couple scratches quickly like this with the fingernail. That's the technique of just taking your fingernail and doing a couple quick kind of like movements like that, and you can go in and get some darker paint up here like so. Same thing here. We can add a little darker tones because it is quite dark here at the bottom, and like that. And let's do a bit of some raw sienna and some of that purple and red we're using. And we're just going to do a shadow here. That's all. Like this. And it doesn't have to be perfect, just something there. And here I just took a gamble and tried to just free flow with some shadowing. I don't know if it's perfect. I have light coming from all different directions when I'm videoing like this, so it's kind of hard for me to get a shadow perfect or anything like that, but I think I kind of just wanted to get that shadow, a little bit of shadow in there, and then we'll do the same thing again here. We'll get a little bit of our background color in there. Both sides here, I won't use anything new as far as colors go. Let's use the same colors we used before, that we started with this painting. I could kind of notice I should maybe have maybe a cooler color in here. So we could take a little bit of cerulean blue, like that, and I'll try to add in some cerulean blue, maybe here in the shadow areas, down here, a little bit there. And some shadowing there with some cerulean blue. So I added some cerulean blue to this. And I'll just add some of that top of the onion like that. A couple of splashes. I might just do this. Take some damp water and just add some water to the paper, and we'll just pretend that the wall is got a shadow on it, like that, behind. And that actually really looks good because it kind of gives more of a feeling of light for the table. So the table almost becomes like, it pops. The table, the white tablecloth or white table kind of pops with the light because we've added in this background with a little bit of that darker tonal value back here. So that really is good. All right, perfect. So we're going to come back in just a few seconds. We'll get started with another fun composition here. sometimes I'll just smooth up the wash like this too, or use the finger painting technique and just bring some of that up like that. Okay, we'll be right back. We'll take a quick break and we'll set up with our next item. All right, let's go for it. Let's do a pear. Look at that. All right, we'll take our tape. These are styrofoam, by the way. All of my fruits here we've been using and vegetables, they're actually the styrofoam. You can order these on eBay. You could just search on eBay for like plastic fruits and things, and you can shop around and you can get really good, deals on. Maybe you can, I think a couple of these, they came in like bundles, like maybe a dozen different fruits and vegetables. So like, I might have got like a couple onions, an apple, a pepper, a few more things like that, in one bundle. And then I just ordered a few here and there over the years, and so now I have some styrofoam fruit, which is faux fruit. They call it faux fruit sometimes, F-A-U-X, faux fruit, or imitation fruit and vegetables, stuff like that, because it's a little bit costly to always purchase fruits and vegetables and things like that on a constant basis if I'm painting these type of things. So it works out really good. I get the styrofoam and it works out really nicely. So let's set this one down here like that. Okay, and we'll just get ourselves the same, about 3/4 of an inch up from the bottom. We start there, and we just notice that here we're going to do a light preliminary sketch. So I'm just going to look at this here. And if I go off course a little bit, no problem. I grab a little bit of okay, no big deal. And then we have the stem here, like that. Okay. Next, I'll just do a little bit of a darker pencil drawing now. I kind of have the feel for it. I'm just going to keep going around. Let's see if I have any more extra. Okay. Okay, looks good. Maybe we'll go across here like so. I'll put this across here. Like that. All right, perfect. Let's get this started. I think I will do the same thing. Just do a quick cleanup of the palette. Again, nothing too fancy, just trying to get the prior colors that we were using. And then we will empty our water container and fresh clean water, and let's mix up our colors. Like we were saying, if you can mix your colors up ahead of time, it's really a great way to just set yourself up for really having an easier time when you're painting. So this here I can see is really beautiful colors here. We got raw sienna. We have maybe a little bit of cadmium orange in there, a little bit of cadmium red in there, a little bit of alizarin crimson, rose madder. We'll put a little bit of all these colors in there. Then we notice there's some shadowing. Maybe our shadowing is some purple and blue with some burnt sienna and burnt umber to gray it down a little bit. And we could also add in some red there. So alizarin crimson into that shadowy kind of color. And also we have maybe a little bit of cadmium yellow. Maybe a little bit of cadmium yellow in there too. All right, so we have our colors. You know, I'm seeing some cadmium yellow here and here in a few areas. Definitely seeing a lot of the raw sienna, the main color of the pear. And then there's, you know, I see some reds and oranges here and there. And we can also, you know, accentuate those colors a little bit to make it look more interesting. And then there's some speckles here. We could add some speckles when it's all dry. Maybe we'll add some texture and some speckles of paint. And let's get started here. So what I'll do is I'll get a lot of that raw sienna there. Now this is something where you could go with a bigger brush, but I think we'll stick with this brush. We've been working with this brush. This is my Charles Reed series number, I think it's a number 8. Let me see if I can. Yeah, I think it's a number 8 Charles Reed travel brush. So what I'll do is I'll just go in, and I think I'm just going to go right in and get this all covered here, like this. Like this. Then I'm going to add some of that red in some spots there that I see. And over here I see some red and orange. Take a little bit of that orange, or cadmium orange, like that. I see some of that darker shadow color. So now I'm just going to try to keep working these washes right onto the pear. It's maybe a little bit darker over here on this side. And you can paint right over your pencil lines if you want. Tiny bit of green. I think I'll put a little bit of green in there. I see a little bit of green, so I'm going to add that in there. Okay, and then there's that shadow under this side over here, like that. And then there's a little more of that darker French ultramarine blue, burnt sienna, shadowing on the underside over here, like that. And we have the stem there. Okay, and I'll just add in the shadow, like so. Okay, if you see a little bit of reflected light on this, you could always take a tissue or a paper towel and you kind of roll it up, and you can just do this like kind of a, you could do a little bit of a, like this. kind of like clouds. I use this same technique when I create clouds in the sky. I just use a little bit of tissue and just like that. And we can make this a little bit darker. Burnt sienna, a little bit of purple. Sometimes there's a little bit of a darker. And you could take this here too and do that shadow there. You can always dry off your brush too. To create shadows, you can take your brush, dry off your brush on a paper towel or tissue, and then you can take your brush and just put it down and rinse it off again, dry it off again on a tissue, paper towel, and you can just lift up some highlights or some light. You could add some reflected light like this. But that looks good to me. And then the next thing I'll do is we're just gonna, again, we'll put some background color in there. If you go over a line, no problem. You can also come back later and use some titanium white to touch up a few spots. Maybe I need to add a little titanium white for a highlight on this. That's possible. A little splash here and there. And again, we can do the same technique if we want to by adding a darker background. And sometimes if we add little bits of darks and changes in tonal value, that can add some excitement to a composition for sure. And some more splashing for texture. And then we will use, you could always take some dark blue and brown, get ourselves a nice dark like this. And this looks like it's dry quite a bit. The pear has dried quite a bit, so we can actually get on that texture. If it comes out too dark, no problem, just lift up and try it later. If see, it's still a little bit damp, the paper. So if your paper's too damp, let it dry, and then you come back and you add that little tapping effect where you get some really nice effects with some tapping, some fine. See, now this is kind of dry, this paper here. See how you can get those really fine speckles like that, fine splashes? So you can do that once this dries 100%. We can come back and do that. Actually, we'll do that. We'll come back once this dries. We'll do a few textured speckles on our pear here, as well as we're going to maybe do a couple of highlights with some white, maybe some white paint, some, I think I have some titanium white here. We could use titanium white and add a few highlights of light to our components, our compositions here, our fruit and vegetables and cups and all the good things we're painting here, having fun. All right, so let's come back in a few minutes and we'll set up for one more, and then I think we'll call it a day. We'll have 8 really good still life compositions that we can have completed, put them to the side in a folder, store them, and then this way, if you're going to do a still life painting in the future, whether it's a month from now or 6 months, whatever it is, you could always take these out, your compositions that you're creating right now, take them out, and you have them as reference. And you'll also remember back to when you painted them too. It'll snap back and you'll say, oh, I remember painting that pepper or that onion or the pear or the apple or the cappuccino cup, whatever it is, all the different things we're painting. It'll just, you'll actually get back to that place. You'll actually remember when you painted this with us here on our tutorial here. You'll remember it, and you'll remember what you did and the color mixes and all that good stuff. So it'll be a great help for you when you're going to create that next still life painting. All right, so let's come back in a second or two and we'll start one more. All right, let's create our last composition. I will set up a paper here like so. And then I'll just tape that paper off so that it doesn't move around. Let's tape that off up top up here, like that. And we'll use another bit of our green frog tape, except we'll use a much smaller piece now. Let's just use a small bit of tape. Try that again here. Oh, this is, try a little bit. I'll use scissors to get myself a little bit better of a trim of a smaller piece here, and then we'll do this. We have a smaller piece now of our tape, and we will use an artist brush. We're going to paint an artist brush, so I will watercolor brush. So we'll use our Raphael brush here. Let's see. And we'll do it like this maybe. Yeah, that looks good. Okay, so we're just going to make it smaller, obviously. So we're going to make it smaller so we can fit it in here. But let's get our Raphael artist brush going here. All right, so the first thing we'll do is we'll just start down here, and we'll just go right across like this on a 45-degree angle, like this. So what I like to do is I'll do the top first, and you can even take a ruler if you want to get it really nice and straight. You can take a ruler and just do a super light, I mean like almost barely imperceptible light line across like that. This way you can feel confident, you know you're going to get a nice straight line across here as you go. And you just come across like that, and then we're going to put the bit of a radius on this here, like so, and that's where the ferrule is here, like that. And then we're going to come back this way, and we're going to come back, and you know it's going to thin down and like that. And then we'll put the orange stripe on it like that, or the orange tip on it like that. That looks good. And then we'll do the ferrule here. So this will be 1 and 2. So they crimp the hairs of the brush in here. And then they go like, and then this is like this here, and I'm trying to make sure I fit this in. And yeah, it looks like we have it. All right, perfect. See, so we have a like that. All right, looks good. We notice there's like a bright highlight here and there. It kind of hit and miss, but we do see a bright highlight. So maybe I'll just put a light pencil line here, just to let myself know. Let me leave a little bit of white paper there when we're painting this. I might shift to a smaller brush too. So I'll use the number 5 Da Vinci travel brush, because I want to, this is a little bit of a smaller technical item that we're doing here, so I want to make sure I use a smaller brush. It gives me a little more control. And then I might take my kneaded eraser and just erase that pencil line we made to start with. Okay, and then this is kind of straightforward here. We're going to go with, again, I'll just do a quick dip my paper towel. Okay, good. And then I noticed that we can go with black, which is, we can just go with French ultramarine blue and burnt umber. And then I just usually mix it until I kind of see that it does look, that looks pretty good. All right. And I just roll the paint around, get a nice good point on the brush like so. And I'll leave the orange tip for later. We'll just do the black portion of the brush handle first. And then I'll just go up and just sort of keep my hand stable, resting on the paper, and just slowly work a little bit at a time, you know. Then I can come back this way and do it this way here. I can pick up more paint, which is good. Like that. Okay, and then we're going to do the top. And again, I did mention I want to leave a little bit of that white light on the brush. Not everywhere, but okay. Then I rinse off my brush. Maybe a little bit of blue, cerulean blue. Dry off the brush. And maybe I'll make the metal, kind of a cooler metal feel. That's got a little bit of the blue in it. Okay. If you want to lighten it up, if it's too dark, you can just lift up a couple times like that. Looks good. Brown for the brush hairs. Maybe a little bit of raw sienna for the brush hairs. And we just get a nice, I leave a little bit of highlights too on the hair of the brush. Why not? Usually there isn't any highlights on the hairs of the brush. Then you can rinse off your brush, dry off your brush after you rinse it off really well, and then you can put a highlight on the top by just taking the brush and using it to lift up some paint, like that. And then maybe a little bit of darker paint under there, like so. And what else can we do? We'll do the orange tip of the brush right down here, like so. I just dip in a little bit of that orange paint, just like that. There we go. Maybe I need a little more darker paint here. It's a little bit thicker there. We can touch this up with white paint. Always remember that. You can always go in and touch up some of your painting and composition. You could add a couple splashes. That's good. We could add a little bit of a dark line there. Could be a little darker maybe. Some blue. Add some blue to it. Some French ultramarine blue. Like that. And carry that line through like that. Okay, maybe we could add a little shadow to that. A little more cerulean blue maybe. I won't get too fancy. I'm just going to go with a light shadow. Like that. And that is good. I hope you've had fun, enjoyed the process, and let's just remember we can go back again and do a few touch-ups. Let's do that. Let's just we'll take a quick second to go back and just add a few highlights, just so you can kind of see that you can make a few corrections and things like that with your titanium white or Chinese white paint. I usually just take a little bit of raw sienna or yellow ochre and put that into the paint, the tip of the tube here, just to kind of make that white just a touch of some warmth to it. And then I have another tissue here. I dry that off a little bit. Okay, so now here I was saying before, you could touch up a couple things like this here. Okay, I wanted to touch that up a little bit. The rest looks good. Maybe a highlight here. Anything else we can do? Let's take a look. I thought we could use a highlight here. Yeah, I think that looks good. Okay, so perfect. Always remember that titanium white can come in handy. Don't worry about it at the end of the painting. You can come back after it's 100% dry. I lost a little bit of this here over this way. So sometimes a wash will get out of control and flow out into other areas you don't want it to. Not a problem. You can just come around this way and fix it up. All right, perfect. All right, so again, I'm glad you're joining along with me here in painting. We're creating still life compositions. We're having fun. You can do these paintings and compositions over and over again. Each time you'll go through them, you'll get better at them. You get more comfortable with the subject matter, with the color mixes, the process that we use. So in any case, I'm really excited that you're painting with me here, and we'll see you on the next video. And again, we make videos every week, so if you are subscribing, you hit the subscribe button. All it does is just let you know when our new videos are coming out each week and each month. And that's really all that is. And of course, if you like the videos, give a thumbs up. Comments, please, always, I'm in the comment section all the time. I always try to say hello to everyone, and thank you so much, everybody, for the beautiful comments and saying hello and giving your ideas on things. And it's always great to hear from everybody. And so, yeah, if you're leaving comments, I can always, if you have a question or whatever, or just say hi is awesome. All right, so we'll see you soon in the comment section on the next video. Bye-bye.